All right, let's talk about one of the most audacious heists in history. A crime so daring, so well planned, it literally became a legend. We're talking, of course, about the Great Train Robbery. So you might be asking yourself, how do you even steal an entire train? I mean, think about it. This wasn't just about grabbing some cash. No, this was about hijacking the engine, detaching it from the rest of the train, and making 2.5 tons of money vanish into the night. It's just wild. So, where does a story like this even begin? Well, it doesn't start with a bang. It starts with a single, mysterious red light, glowing in the middle of nowhere in the dark English countryside. Okay, so set the scene. It's August 8th, 1963, 3 in the morning. A Royal Mail train is just hurtling through the darkness on its usual overnight run from Glasgow to London. It's packed with mail, sure, but it's also carrying a secret, a very, very valuable cargo. And then, suddenly, the train grinds to a halt. And for the driver, a guy named Jack Mills, this is just wrong. Instantly, he knows this stretch of track like the back of his hand. And the signal at this spot, Sears Crossing, it should always be green for the mail train. Always. So for it to be red, something is seriously, seriously off. His assistant driver hops out to use the trackside phone to see what's going on, but the line's dead. It's been cut. The night is completely silent. And then, bam! Out of the shadows, figures emerge, and they just swarm the train. Okay, so this might look like just chaos, right? But what's so wild is that this moment wasn't random at all. It was the result of months and months of planning. So let's back up a bit and see how this incredible, supposedly flawless plan was actually put together. The crew for this thing was basically an all-star team from the London underworld. The guy who put it all together was a mastermind named Bruce Reynolds, and he had one single, non-negotiable rule: absolutely no guns. Now, this wasn't about them being nice guys. It was a cold, hard calculation. See, back in '63 in Britain, if a robbery went wrong and someone was killed, that was a hanging offense. Guns just brought way too much heat. Their whole thing was to be professionals, not murderers. But here's the thing. They couldn't have pulled this off on their own. They had what you might call a ghost in the machine, an insider, someone high up in the Royal Mail who was feeding them information. And the craziest part? To this day, nobody knows who it was. It's one of the biggest mysteries of the whole case. And this insider, wow, did they deliver. They gave the crew two absolute game changers. Tip number one, the secure carriage, the one with all the alarms, was conveniently out of service. So they were using a backup carriage that had no alarm. And tip number two, because it was just after a long bank holiday weekend, the train was carrying way, way more cash than usual. We're talking about a jackpot of old, used banknotes, the kind that are almost impossible to trace. It was the perfect storm. So here's the plan in a nutshell. It's kind of brilliant in how simple it is. Step one, rig the signal with a glove and a battery to stop the train. Step two, get on board and uncouple the engine in the first two carriages. Step three, drive that stolen section about 1 kilometer down the track to a place called Britico Bridge. And step four, unload the cash into a waiting army truck and poof, vanish. 4 simple steps to becoming millionaires. All right, so that's the plan. Now let's get to the heist itself and see how this perfect plan met a very messy reality in about 15 minutes of pure chaos. So right away, the perfect plan hits a major snag. The guy they brought to drive the train, he knew old steam engines. This was a modern diesel electric, and he was completely lost. He couldn't make it go. So in this really brutal twist, they had to force the original driver, Jack Mills, who they'd already beaten up, to get back in the cab and drive his own train to their getaway spot. Just off. So picture this scene at Brydgo Bridge. It's pitch black. You've got this human chain of 15 guys just frantically passing these heavy sacks of money, 120 of them, down this steep, muddy embankment to the truck below. They're literally racing against the clock. And the amount of money, my goodness. So in all that chaos, they actually left 8 sacks behind. But even so, they got away with £2.5 million. For 1963, that is just a staggering, life-changing amount of cash. Just to give you some perspective, in today's money, that's almost £60 million. 60 million. And they got it all in just 15 minutes. Incredible. So the heist itself, a massive success. They pulled it off. But as the gang got away to their hideout to count the cash, One of them made one tiny, careless mistake, a mistake that was going to bring the whole thing crashing down. So as they were leaving the train, one of the robbers told the crew they'd tied up, "Don't move for 30 minutes." Now, he thought he was being clever, buying them some extra getaway time, but it turned out to be the dumbest thing he could have said. Why was it so dumb? Because the police heard that and immediately did the math. How far could an old, slow army truck get on country roads in half an hour? That gave them a search area, a radius of about 50 kilometers. The robbers basically drew a circle on a map for the police and said, "Hey, we're hiding somewhere in here." Meanwhile, the gang is totally oblivious. They get to their hideout, a place called Leatherslade Farm, and the party begins. They're dividing up millions of pounds, playing games. They must have felt like kings of the world, totally invincible. And they thought they were being smart too. Before they left the farm, they wiped the whole place down for fingerprints. But in all the excitement and celebration, they missed one thing. One small, almost ridiculous object. You're not going to believe this. The clue that brought down one of the biggest robberies in history was a Monopoly board. Yep, they were so happy with themselves, they started playing a game of Monopoly using the actual stolen cash. And one of them left a single fingerprint on the board. That was it. The whole thing unraveled because of a board game. So once the police got a tip from a neighbor about suspicious activity at the farm, they went in. They found the Monopoly board, they found the print, and boom. It was a match for a guy they already had on file. After that, it was just a matter of time. The dominoes started to fall, one after another. And this is really where the legacy of this whole thing gets complicated and sad. On one hand, you have the robbers. They got sentenced to 30 years, but because it was the 60s, a lot of people saw them as folk heroes, sticking it to the man. They became famous. But then you have the driver, Jack Mills. There was no glamour for him. He was beaten so badly during the heist that he suffered from severe trauma for the rest of his life. He could never drive a train again. And he died just 7 years later. He's the forgotten victim in this whole story. So, in the end, that leaves us with this one big, nagging question. The robbers? Most of them got caught. The money? A lot of it was found. The legend was born. But what about the insider? The person high up in the Royal Mail who made the whole thing possible in the first place? They were never found, never identified, and they never faced justice. Who was the real mastermind? We still don't know.